signatures and stuff in there? Yeah, what is all that?
More for them to call it to order and adopt the agenda.
Yeah, Asheville's nice.
I've been in a split or two.
Just because they start school this next week, so I'm just going to take off the weekend.
Who did you surgery?
The little one's all I'm a little shy. I'm like, no, you're not. You're the last one in the room.
He's done this
Put your hand up.
35 years ago with his eyes closed, he said. But I told him I didn't.
Did you get one of these when you went to when you left it, had to go to that? What's one of the things they gave out at that essentials class? You know, like when you get elected, you have to go to that ethics things and you went up to the scared about.
We don't have to do that like every
Cycle, I
year.
think.
Every time you get elected.
Yeah. Actually, I have to do campaign finance again, and I have to do the ethics.
But now the campaign finance this past time I was able to do Zoom. I don't know how they're.
It's different
Hopefully
now,
they're still doing it by Zoom.
I don't know. Oh my gosh.
There's the, you can see it's called a spiral, so it kind of goes down.
Yep. That looks like your tibia,
I mean, you're live.
because the front is your fibia, right?
I could hear myself tap when I was.
They,
Your shin bone's your fibia, the back is your tibia.
yeah, it's the one on the side.
It's probably where it's broke that they had to fix it.
Yeah, and so I don't have today's pictures yet. That's the new hardware that's got there.
No, but
They did that because it was
Landon
causing
you got bring them
the
inside.
trauma over here. So
I did.
Yeah.
So by putting a plate there,
Yeah, it realigns it.
it's everything, and already it was almost instantly, that's it. I totally went that way.
I wonder if you'll have like long-term issue with it.
Now he said, he said if I didn't do anything,
You would.
I haven't.
Then you drink water,
99% you don't.
because outside they're
Probably ankle issues.
Yep.
Oh, you are.
Right, he said,
last year I had some
Wait, physical therapy
I was
after?
smaller, so
Yeah.
this year
yeah, they gave
I got a fire tree.
me some exercises, but I should have full range of motion.
Mine was a 7 foot.
I wonder if you'll know when the rain
No, they're
falls.
supposed to do fine inside.
It's freaking me out. There's a portion like the top of my foot from like here down like here, but I can't feel it. He says,
This swelling, and once the swelling, the trauma goes down.
yeah, there's the nerves down my pain.
Okay, so we're gonna hang on just a bit to run another one.
So we'll see, hopefully.
But I always thought I was gonna be late. I thought I was gonna be late. I texted mom and said, I'm on my way, I'm stuck in traffic on Cuthbert. Actually, I was at the light.
On the Cuthbert traffic?
Yeah, when school starts this week.
You folks better do something about that.
I was talking to Jeff because they've open house on Thursday night's open house for the middle school.
Oh, that's gonna be a mess. We have an open house too. Tomorrow I'll be there.
Well, we start in the afternoon now. Open house in the afternoon.
Not at the middle school tomorrow night, Thursday night. And then Friday night's the football game. We're having a tailgating
Are
thing.
you gonna be there?
At the football game?
Yeah.
Yeah, my son's on the team.
I might slither on over there. How does that work?
You have to buy e-tickets. So you buy a ticket and then you have to use the QR code to scan into the gate.
And you can't buy it at the gate.
Well, you have to scan a code there at the gate to be able to get a code to do it. Because they're doing all electronic tickets. Because there's too much cash being done and it's getting skimmed.
That's interesting.
It was getting skimmed.
Oh.
So you can't buy tickets at the
You
gate.
can, but they'll have a thing that you have to scan to buy your tickets online. So it depends on how.
So you have to buy it on your phone right then and there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can, but it depends on
Gotcha.
people's internet connection and things, if they can
Yeah.
do that.
A chance to look at your calendar for the changes for September.
Yeah, we should always send us pictures on
Looking for
Facebook.
the week
So,
of September 19th through the 23rd.
The Kensington dads, I think, are going to
It's
tailgate
a big day.
September 2, the next one. And I was just trying to get an idea of how they handle that.
Oh, Zebo did your,
You can go right in the parking lot.
he did my foot
Because I
surgery.
asked, I said, are they
He
okay
did
with
both,
this?
yeah.
Do this?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
doing
it went well.
Will we be taken away from our business?
No issues, and I have a friend of mine that had her.
No, well, they're doing a big thing for all the kids, like a back to school thing, so they're doing like a whole thing like out the
He's
back.
wonderful. Comes highly recommended.
Well, yeah, they
Arkansas.
surgery on
We're gonna, like I said, I might slid on
So
that.
today,
So I don't know that I could do the night that we're gonna put there.
plans. I got that off this morning. September 20th, that's when I get it off.
Well, I have a little scooter if you get tired of the
Yeah,
scratches.
I got one around the house. Oh, I'm running into all kinds of stuff. It's so fun. It's so fun. So the 21st or the
This is my son getting his sack. Oh, this is 13.
21st is
That's a good number.
21st is Wednesday. Okay, great. Thank you.
13,
Now,
13, the letter M.
yeah,
I'm not sure exactly what you were
Stands for more.
no,
you
that's
need me to
Or
do.
methamphetamine. Murder.
Okay,
I like murder. That's a lie. Oh my God! I thought of you.
and now all this setup.
There's a woman on a bike.
You know, it's a logistical
A little challenging, yes.
Totally understand.
to do everything.
Well, to
So
be
just let me know
honest,
if you
we
need-
used to get these updates and they would tell us at work, you know, say, just watch out for the number, and that's what it signifies.
Yeah, so
That's
Mike,
one.
yeah.
That's,
yeah, so it could,
They're not.
well, you know, I-
Yeah, they are. This is the rest chair. My goodness. All right, everybody here? Going on? Yeah. What he said. It's great. Well, welcome. Welcome, everybody. It's good to, when's the last time we had one of these? About 500 years ago, probably. It's been good. All right, so make it simple on this one. We only have to call this meeting to order, so I will do just that. We are now called to order. And so I'm going to turn this over to Lisa, our planning director, and the show is yours.
Awesome, thank you, Mayor. If you guys will allow, we do have one public comment I'd like to read into the record. It's from Daniel Ferris. He says, "I'm enthusiastic that our Board of Commissioners, subsequent boards, and staff will be collaborating to lay the cornerstones of Waxhaw future comprehensive plan. Updating the comprehensive plan will aid the town in identifying past inefficiencies and guide us in making wise adjustment for short and long-term future land usage and infrastructure needs. To the citizens of our town, our commissioners, boards, and town staff are instruments in this process. My hope is that we will set an unprecedented engagement, helping guide our elected officials, equipping them with the needed tools to establish policies for updating our comprehensive plan that will be our guiding document, so that they will be our advocate in conveying our vision for the future sustainable growth in Waxhaw."
Very good. All right, well, thank you for that.
All right, so back at our retreat, you guys all gave us the thumbs up to proceed with updating our comprehensive plan. We went through our growth strategy, we've updated our land development code, we've updated our future land use plan at the time, and now we need the comprehensive plan to back that up. So we've been working over the past few months. We're starting to put down some ideas on paper before we got too far and into the public. Before we got our website posted, we wanted to get your guys' goals, objectives, and make sure we're going on the right path before we get too far down the road. What is a comprehensive plan? It's a long-range policy document. It's used as a guide for staff, for you all, and more importantly for our future decision makers regarding land use, capital improvements, and public programs. We're planning out to 2040. So if we grow like the past 2 decades, we're looking at a population of 60,000, 80,000 with annexation. So what does this look like for capital expenditures? What number of staff are we going to need? Roads? What other infrastructure? Parks and Rec? We're looking at the big picture. I'll be interested in hearing some trends that Mitch Silver is going to be presenting at our upcoming work session with him. I saw one stat about this year is the first year in North Carolina that we had more deaths than births. So all of our growth is migration. So what does that look like for Waxhaw? Is that how we're trending? I also saw how the current workforce is growing at a much slower rate than the baby boomers. So what does the future workforce look like in Waxhaw? We've talked about it, you've heard Jeff say that we're really good at adopting plans that sit on the shelf. So we want this plan to be about 30 pages. You go to the maps, you go to the goals and objectives, that's all we want. We want very specific goals, objectives, keep it clean and simple. We want to combine all those other plans. If we have to reference them, we will, but we want this to be a united document.
And just to make sure there in the statement, when we talked about plans sitting on the shelf, that ended a long, long time ago.
Yes.
And this board has been the initiators in some case and the people who execute the plans. As you know, sometimes I have this $1 million box that I hold, and it's got about $1 million worth of plans
Yeah.
that were proposed by the town over the last 10 years that never saw the light of day.
I think I counted 12 over the last
At
10
least.
years. So we want to combine these maps, so when you look at the map, you know what your ped plan improvement is, especially with the new fee and lieu. Do we want to park at this property? Do we want a trail? Do we need road improvements? We want all of that, so we go look at the plan, we know exactly what we want, and here's the goal, so you guys can make a decision when we're rezoning property to, yes, it meets the plan, or no, it does not. And then most importantly, we need your guys' buy-in, we need staff, we want all the departments buy-in, we're gonna be meeting with all the departments, and we need the public's buy-in. This is a long-range plan. This cannot shift with an election. This cannot shift with a new town manager. This is big picture goals for the year of 2040, so.
I think they're talking about us, Jeff, I'm not sure.
So this is the people's plan, so we'll be out in the public, we'll be getting their ideas, and we want to make sure that this reflects that. And with that, I'll hand it over to Blair. Blair has about 100 years of experience doing comprehensive. And he's been the
It feels
project
like it,
lead
right?
for
Feels like
this.
100 years, yeah. Yeah, I just want to just say briefly something about the project area and also the logistics for this meeting tonight. The project area, I just want to direct your attention to that map there behind Lisa. The deep blue or deep aqua you can see is our current town limits, but also on that map you see our surrounding municipalities, so it kind of gives you an idea of what we're butting up against. But then there's those in-between areas. You'll see what is called the joint planning districts, and these are districts that we have been in communication with Union County and their planning department, and the understanding is that we would plan those areas and communicate what our objectives are for those areas so that they in turn can work with us and work with their commissioners to see how we can bring that about. So more about that later, but I also want to mention what you see up there as well as the extended planning district to the south. When you add that to the planning area, this planning area reflects what the area was in the 2016 comprehensive plan. And we feel that's important to include that area, not only because it's a continuation of the 2016, but also because, as Lisa mentioned, we should be expecting a fair amount of growth in the area, and a lot of it we feel would come to the county, and areas that we need to plan for are in the county, not so much the other jurisdictions. So that's our big area to the south where there's a potential for growth and annexation. So
Also found this graphic.
Mhm.
Blue is our boundary in 2000,
Oh, yeah.
orange is 2015. So think 2030 in the next 15 years, and then.
And it doesn't mean that we're going to go that direction, except we're doing the plan. This is 50-year thinking instead of sticking our heads in the sand like that graph and not planning for what will eventually either be us or even could be another municipality.
yeah, and you'll see some early inklings of what we think should be in the comp land use plan, and then we would want your input on that. So talking about how this meeting's going to work, we have different subject matter up all around the room. You can see these different boards, and at one point soon we will ask you to get up and go to each one of those workstations and give your input. You can go in any order you like. We'll have somebody at each station to kind of take down your observations, goals that you might have, strategies for those particular items. As you can see, we have over here utilities. We have the business and employment aspect of the plan. We have behind Lisa, we have some information that would be helpful for housing and neighborhoods. And then to the left of that, open space, environmental, and that map will be used both to talk about open space and also about recreation. And then over here, these last two are about transportation. The map on the left being about focusing on vehicular transportation, and the one on the right, bicycle and pedestrian transportation. A lot of that information is very fresh because we have received the draft back of the pedestrian plan, and we'll be presenting that to you hopefully soon, in the next few weeks perhaps. So that's something about what's to be included tonight, but also dinner is going to be available. Actually, if anytime you want to get it, that's fine, but we're thinking that it might work best if we go through our work session, and then you'll have plenty of time to get your dinner before the rest of the meeting. So I think that's really all I need to cover for logistics. The project schedule overall, how this is going to work, Janet can give us more information about that. There she is.
Okay, so the planning department has been meeting weekly since last December to develop the first draft of this plan. We've met with some focus groups, so far the Main Street Advisory Board, and Blair and Madison took a trip to JARS to meet with them. During this month, we're developing our online public input materials and public meeting materials, and then of course tonight's workshop. For September, we are planning the open house right before the Mitch Silver event. There's been a lot of invitations out to other jurisdictions, so we're going to tailor that to multi-jurisdictional issues and cooperation. And then we'll have conversations with UCPW, engineering, public services, building inspections, and Parks and Rec. Dina's been involved with some of the planning so far, but we want to meet with the group. And then in September, we'll also have a downtown business state historic preservation office tax credit workshop. After that workshop, we'll be meeting with the SHPO reps to talk about comprehensive planning for historic preservation. At the September Planning Board meeting, we'll plan to do a workshop similar to this with Planning Board members. And towards the end of the month, launch the project webpage. And then in October, we'll meet with the Parks and Rec Board, HPC, process whatever public input we've received, and revise the draft, and then do a second public meeting, possibly tied in with your forum for October. And then the Waxhaw Business Associates meeting, and bring the results of all of that to the VOC 2x2s in October. We'll revise the draft and hopefully be ready to present to the Planning Board at their November meeting, and then a December public hearing and January adoption.
Good and fast. Quick
That's a lot of
question I
work.
have. Those property values, if you can find something under 20 grand an acre around, we'll buy it all. I'm going to assume that's on tax values that you pulled off somewhere.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's, the only real accurate one is actually the one in downtown area, because that's the apartment site. Those are pretty light, but I understand why.
Yeah, and it needs that disclaimer on there that it's based on tax values, but you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really include any speculation. So I just want to add, I've gone around and briefly introduced you to the subject matter of the plan. The biggest one being the land use plan itself, which is we're going to get to in a minute, and have some time around the table for that one. It's not just another station we go to. That's the one that's going to have our focus. But also in the plan, in addition to those sections, the plan itself is going to have some instruction about how to use the plan, how the plan is useful to different folks, including the board, planning board, town staff, developers. We wanted to be a very hands-on document that's going to be useful to anyone, including people in private real estate and homeowners. So something about how to use the plan, a review of current Waxhaw plans, not an exhaustive review, but just sort of here's some highlights, here's some things that we feel are the most important from each one of those $1 million worth of plans. And so we reviewed those, and they're informing the plan we're doing, but we want to have a little something about each one. And then a little bit of area about or a little bit of verbiage about the project area itself in terms of the regional context, because we're not just planning in isolation. We have a regional context. We have factors going on that affect the whole area around us, particularly growth and how the area is growing. And then something about coordinating with other jurisdictions, particularly on some of these subject matter, for instance, trails or utilities. And so that will also, as you've seen, the project includes the town limits, the joint planning areas, and the additional planning area below, so we'll be addressing all those. And then finally, something about the general growth trends that are going on. And Madison can tell us a little bit more about that before we break up and look at the individual subjects.
Yep, so to be good with time, you guys have heard a lot of this, especially with our growth strategy. So in our 2020-2021 growth strategy, we talked about reaching the mile marker of 20,000 residents. So as of July 2021, we have now exceeded 21,000 residents. So we're at 21,673. So again, this is now 120% growth for the town, and that's to be expected with Union County. So 2025, Union County is to be exceeding 269,000, and then in 2030, it's going to be over 295,000. So as you see, we are a part of that growth. So the median household income is 116,000, and we have a 97% of our residents have a high school degree, and then a 54% have a bachelor's degree or higher. So we have a highly educated population here that would be great for employment centers or business centers. And then so for housing, this may not be true for this market now, but the median value of a unit now is $351,000. I've seen plenty of housing units go for well over that, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 here in Waxhaw. So with that number, we have over 4,500 housing units here. So we have 4,874 housing units within town. And so with the demographics, we're seeing 73% of our population is under 19 or between the ages of 35 and 54. So we have younger populations, and then we have families, so it's a good mix of the families here in Waxhaw. And so with this comes the need to support these new housing units and these new families here in town. So what does that look like? That goes into our need for a greater tax base. So when we presented our growth strategy, we had a 93% residential, 7% commercial. It is now at 90% commercial, 10% residential. So we're doing better, but with our comp plan, we hope to guide and create better employment centers and business opportunities for the town. And so I guess with the housing, give another blur for the Mitch Silver, we hope to learn current housing trends, as some of you may have already heard with his presentation earlier, but for what that looks like in Union County. And then, yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
So to keep with our schedule, what we're trying to do is give everyone an opportunity to go around each one of these stations. There's going to be a staff member at each one, and just pick whatever order you'd like, but try to get to all of them. And unfortunately, with the time we have, there's just about 5 minutes per station. So be as quick as you can. Think in terms of strategies that you want to propose for those areas, or if there's some goal that's maybe not the obvious goal, let us know that, and or any particular concerns that you have that may not also be obvious. That we want to glean from you whatever we can in this meeting. That's what this is about. It's not so much us presenting; it's us getting the information. So with that, I'd ask everybody to get up. Caroline's going to kind of keep us on task.
Real quick, that we will be coming back here
Yeah.
to talk about our future land use plan, and so we can start looking at that. So that is part of it.
Right.
Do we want any comments or questions on what you've heard so far? Do you want to go around the
Just
table at all?
the maps that I have, especially this one here, so I know our municipality is kind of in the darker color, and then we have the donut holes, and then we have all the Union County area. The bottom boundary, that's the state line?
No, that's actually Waxhaw Creek, and it's the same limit that was given to the comprehensive plan of 2016. So we chose to use that same boundary. The state line's a little further down. You can see jars there in the lettering. We don't ever show the southern border of Union County. You can see, of course, the western border of it, but it's not much further down.
Okay.
And you can see Highway 200.
So that's just a creek.
It's just a creek.
And something really important is the new Lancaster High School is like right here and all that growth in Lancaster, so just kind of think about that. for
Lancaster or the Indian land?
Indian Land
Indian Land, yeah.
High School.
I was gonna say they moved another one.
And you'll be able to pick up a little bit more about the context from the different maps. So just be looking at that.
And if there's changes in the maps, we can make those as well.
I just wanted to,
Madison, so on your information, we've always talked about the top of the 7,000. So it's, how is that?
we have 6,900 plus.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Lisa, do you have that
You think
map
that's a
that you
little
showed
number?
with the,
Okay.
the growth?
Yeah.
Do you have that as a graphic that you can email?
I can. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
that's
hoping to
probably
update
true.
that with the latest too.
Probably true, so back
Gotcha.
that one.
Okay.
I don't know that a lot of people.
It just caught my ear because I talk about it all the time.
Yeah, we want to have our numbers straight.
Oh, good, you're gonna pick on me. Hop along, you need some help?
Specifically in housing. What I, is that as all this growth is happening, you have to make sure that we are really best that we can to do that. Some of these roadways, I understand them. So that in the future we're not swimming in there's no way to go. It's like I think it does, but I think right now, you said that's 20,000 people. That's 3 times. That would be, somewhat canvas those roads and those mixed-use type of projects would be critical because how we're strategically placing them. It's just certainly state limits.
So when you talk about changing the powers that they can go to, it's mentioned. I did not know that. Anyway,
We're just saying that this is 21,000 imagine, so we have, that would mean all that is ours.
we'll extend to the state line, the south. So the south and the west will be fine. How far?
That's why I said this. Yeah.
I saw where your hand went. I saw where your hand went.
I make fun of you. Kind of hop along.
Anyway, yeah, I was having some personal hang on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that it is very economic.
You're a Tony Stark after battle.
That's my where are they going to be a part of it? It will be, like I always say, it will be
I saw it. I was like, hey, what's going on? All right.
Put out like where.
that's just where it's headed. That's what he's gonna do. He's gonna go
Showcase
But I think these videos are good. We probably should put on these escape just to then talk about this as the plan. Because you show this, you show that. Like all your neighbors eventually at some time you start to.
There's like clear cut.
And so this is 40. I got
It's your job to be,
One right now, one right here, all of this land right here, it's all farms, they all have sales.
The only thing that I would say, great
If your workforce is coming down here,
So we just take pictures.
taking photos.
Take a picture of you?
No.
So here's the thing, we need to.
I was gonna say,
This is all unincorporated.
What do you see as important trends?
Well, the entire plan.
Right, all the way.
That was just Sharon was there, so I was
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Those signs are still around in Indian land.
And so, where's the high school? Highway 5. It's in high school.
What other kids do? I was saying like in this year.
If we can, they're actually, so if I were planning without that conversation, I would probably this way.
Big house.
We can look to look at their future if they have.
They wanna go?
their design pattern.
They do, because they're that was my job. Sides of the line. They've even done that. They never
And what I'm saying is, if you were to ask me, my mind, they have your weight there. But I would rather see the road built that helps with the trail and it's that road's flat. That's the sort of thing that should it's the extra round. But you know, it's gonna be in my mind, it's the way it's not. I would rather see that go. Because I don't know that we have that luxury.
that does
To look at it, just
Oh,
but, you know what I mean? Like,
all the other things we have, like, transportation, maybe going back in some of this area. What's going on over here? Needs to be like that, like the mixed use, I think, like all those trends.
Business park,
And I don't think necessarily 5-year-old, but I think it's the expiration age. White strings.
These areas.
and as soon as that comes in, maybe we can start. Lancaster County has shoved a bunch of residential, up here, towards the 45, but there's some, retire, who are some of those subcontractors, some of those small businesses, some of the small distributors. Pretty serving some of that growth area now. Go look at the website.
You're right, there isn't a whole lot of this here.
521 required studios. Yes.
I'm in my seat.
See how they plan, even that small of a piece. DOA. Just again, you have to have that stations. I'm trying to get these guys now, so they kind of fit in the street batteries from the roadway before
Yeah, I mean, at this scale, that's more about big branches and big strategies.
What other industry?
And that's fine, and we're okay with that.
But then we can also say, hey, we're
That would be,
that kind of culture is in this program. What I would say, maybe we soften our culture in that area.
time's up for everything.
Sure that we have that kind of heritage. So everybody's asking, Western and homestead style, larger, homes.
All right, so folks, I finish up where you are, if you would, and we want to take a chance to sit down and look at the land use map and
Run the way he wants.
start drawing on that. I think you'll find it very interesting. Let's get this out of the way.
And hey, we're going to make sure that these haven't got the roads.
Housing?
It's divided tournaments designated to increase traffic. Might not be two ways which way, but it's gonna be.
Well, we're doing okay. Good.
For me, it's like,
How's the family?
Fine.
Ready for another semester?
She's already at school.
Yeah, I guess she would be. Now it's starts to
She's already there.
So say if you're Imperial Harvest, you want to go over that.
Year and a half, put her down.
That's the traffic.
Wow. Sophomore,
Then in the other one, you have
all other fees, junior status go down.
Wow.
She had credits going. But it was a program in high school with community college.
Okay.
So she got some credits as well.
That's awesome. Hopefully, on the fast track.
Right, get in, get out.
Ready to be on your own. Self-sustaining.
All right. So everybody, please take a seat. I know, I do. I hate to be so stern with people.
All right, let's go.
Okay, come on, everyone.
Let's go.
This is the fun part.
We already had fun.
I know, but it's going to be even more fun. It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
Top down.
Okay, so we have, yes, where's Caroline, our time? There she is. How much time do we have? We have like 10 minutes.
We can fix that.
Yes, well,
Well, it depends how long you guys need to get before your next meeting.
yeah. So this is our future land use plan so far. It's a draft, and there's a lot of different layers on here. It might get a little confusing. I do want to point out, though, that we've got, the color code is by future land use, and those are more defined over here. So if you want to take a closer look, just grab this sheet. We're borrowing it from our future land use plan that's currently our future land use plan.
This is the playground right now.
Yeah. So you're sitting on the right side of the table.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out that this is what's really important and needs to be have much more definition are the joint planning areas. And I know they don't like jump right out at you, but you can see the town limits and you can see the project limits, and it's these sandwichy places in between, a little bit of feathering in it. So you can see it's here, it's these spots here, and then the areas all around Lawson, and then this little bit over here, a couple other little corners here and there. But we have some proposed land uses there now, and if you really get out your microscope, you can see some things actually written in there about particular ideas. That's not critical for you to see what we've thought. We want to see what y'all think. So feel free to grab a marker. We've got some black markers around here. We got red, we got purple, and we've got some stickies if you want to use those instead. But don't be afraid to just draw right on the plan. Purple.
Purple. A few
So what are we,
changes.
what's the task?
So,
What are we supposed to do?
Well, we want to get your reaction to this, and if you think something should change,
Well,
write it on.
tell us, maybe you can load us up a little bit on
Yeah.
what's changed off of what we think we know right now.
That's a good
so
question.
we filled in the joint planning area that was all pink with what we think we want. So green is the existing low density, existing subdivisions.
Okay.
Yellow is medium density, which is 3 to 5. Do we need a high density and split that up? I don't know. Downtown is the blue. Mixed use is your neighborhood centers in brown. Commercial, employment center. One thing we changed was more town center downtown on
Okay.
Howie property. We brought it back a little bit farther. On Waxhaw Marvin Road, I think we expanded the employment center.
We did
We want that neighborhood center. I don't know if it makes sense that we have the yellow. This is the train tracks. This is Waxhaw Marvin. We want that employment center over there. And then how far, like, to the downtown, do we want town center versus employment center versus neighborhood center? How far out do we want to go? That's where we want our mixed use.
Well, I think
Maybe
I
height.
think it would make sense, like in terms of like, where's actually the downtown needs to probably will be expanding east down 75 as
Middle district we talked about.
yeah, like the like beyond
Easier.
that as all that property gets developed more eastwards, because I think like that would be like mixed use.
I think that
like
is going to
abutting-
be in pockets though, because the proximity of the roadways and the railroad track, I think you're going to have to
Right.
leapfrog over some to get to the east. To your point though, as well, the expansion of the downtown can easily go north and has a lot of room
Right.
to go there all the way up to the parkway.
Right.
And then it
Yeah.
also can pivot and go this way as it's incorporated all the way through the Ty Park property and anything in between. So you're almost going to have this arc that comes this way, because I don't think the continuity is here yet for that.
But and I even think downtown out towards Rehoboth and
Oh, yeah,
out,
it's gotta go-
out
it's gotta go
towards
west.
by where Helms
It's gotta
is
go
and
west.
Belshire is
Right.
being planned.
At least to where 701 is.
Yes.
At
We
least
did
about
add
there.
some town center over there. And then neighborhood center, employment center, why do we put employment center back here?
Is that John's property there?
Cocoa Mets?
No, south of 75.
This is 701 there, right?
Yeah.
So we already, that's made its
Oh, John
property.
Yep.
That is, yeah.
And so that's that's almost the edge here, because then you're gonna start to leapfrog, and I don't think you're gonna have
Yeah.
that continuity there.
Do we
I
want
think the growth
neighborhood
is gonna go.
center, commercial, where this intersector comes?
But,
with the
but
road
again, this
crossing?
plan is what, 20 or 30 years out, correct? So this
Yes.
is what you want it to look like in 20, 30 years, even though you may have to leapfrog, but if this is
Well,
the
if
goal.
you can, yeah, that's just
There's a lot of
it,
houses.
if you
Well,
can.
true, but a lot of those houses are being converted to,
For context,
Yeah,
the
there's-
pink area is the joint planning area. When
Yeah.
you adopted this future land use plan last year, we reserved what we're doing now to come back and revisit that area. And then we'd approach the county and work with them over, and then move forward from there. So this areas that they're going over right now are really that pink area. there.
Exactly.
so that's what we're discussing is the pinks.
Yes.
Right.
And
What kind
another-
of uses do we see?
We have the Parkway, do we want employment center, and that's abutting Mineral Springs.
Well, again, you've got residential already existing in this neighborhood here, so the likelihood is probably not over there. You've got the treehouse property there. But along the corridors, probably so. Probably more concentrated in here because of the topo and the availability, and then down here as well. So maybe not much more through here. I don't see that it couldn't be.
So split those parcels.
Well, it, again, depends on how that roadway gets finally, aligned. What's it gonna be like? Will it be, in this area like we talked, do we have any custom lots anywhere? Is that gonna be viable? Will the topo and the train and all that lend itself to that type of development, or will it
Access.
not? Because you've got, this whole project here is right up against the track, has been for decades. It exists, but it's not full. So was there a market for it? It's not full up yet, so probably not. But I think you're gonna see the concentrations up here, and these guys own this too. Up there, so, we can extend from here, whatever we see, and plus, it isn't always what we see, it's what the market trends to. We have to be aware of that, we're just having that conversation, so maybe, again, this is 50 years out, maybe you're gonna have, blow people's mind, maybe you're gonna have a high-rise over there or something, because that's the way people live, because you wanna conserve some real estate, so you go vertical. A lot of things can change.
It'd be like the Jetsons.
Yeah, well, it could be like the Jetsons.
Well, this is just a 2040, but still.
All right, so we'll go 2035 then.
But even I think we've had conversations in the past, and maybe this isn't considered downtown, maybe this has an identity of its own.
Oh, it will, villages.
Whatever you call that.
Right. But again, we don't know, but taking a look at it to see how
Right.
it develops,
Right.
over time, again, this is a living document, or should be a living document. So as trends change, we shouldn't be so locked in that we can't do anything.
Right.
We should be able to be flexible depending on what our overall planning and the town manager plans as far as his revenue stream.
That's why you revisit it every 3 to 5 years.
Right, exactly. You need to
Well, you
make
have to
sure
keep
that
up
you're
with
still
the
on
market-
target.
with the
Right.
market conditions,
Which is,
right?
what do we have on one of those we wrote over there?
Yeah.
Following the market trends.
Right.
Market trends isn't all what we decide, it's what people are wanting to live in or what businesses want to locate.
Yeah, so keep in mind that this document is going to be there, so when a developer comes, just in a typical fashion, and says, we want to develop this area, this shows our expectations.
Right.
This shows
We
not
set
what
it.
we predict is going to happen, but
What
the
we'd like to-
level
what we
to
want
which
to
it
see.
should be developed that will be in line with what we want. And when I say level, I don't just mean density, I mean like where would there be different features.
But to the mayor's point too,
Expectations.
as time goes on, as we stick with like the 3 to 5 year time frame, we have to really take to heart what developers tell us too
Yeah.
about what those trends are, what they're seeing in the market, that kind of thing, and then we need to adjust our thinking as we move along based on that as well, and what our expectations are.
Well, it's not even from what they're saying, we should be aware of what the market is like around us and not say, this guy said this,
Yeah.
or this
Well,
guy said that, because he
you
wants to
it
do
over
that.
Not based on one person tells
Right.
you, but a trend of what people.
A trend,
that
or,
interact
again,
with,
I'm
yes.
in that business, so I'm somewhat aware of these things that are going on. Normally, people are not. They don't understand it, or they want to lock in, like some of the other municipalities that want large lots. Well, you won't be able to bring that to the market for under, probably $2 million in short order. And so can everybody afford that? Can our teachers, can our fire chiefs and firemen and
Or
all that, can
first-time
they live here?
home
First-time
buyers.
home buyers,
Yeah.
kids, you know, all you guys have young kids, and so what happens next? You know, what do you provide for them? You know, it's our way to provide that housing that is affordable, which is different than the other terms.
So, in thinking about that for a moment, are there areas that we want to locate right now to say, okay, we want to have this kind of housing? We think this would be a prime area for this kind of housing versus that kind of housing in the land use plan now. This would be a good time to maybe make some dots on the map.
Well, a lot of it's going to be we'll call it the transport corridors. So, you know, what do we have? You know, none of this is flat and square. And so we have to look at all the topo and see what can actually physically fit there. And if we have to go vertical for whatever reason, I'm just being, again, planning out there, if we have to go vertical, then maybe that's how we have difficult sites that you can't go horizontal, you go vertical, you still get what you need out of it, but now you've created this environment for, you know, some farming and some, you know, farm to fork kind of stuff. You start to think about those things on properties. You look at Japan and they have, you know, complete farms on hillsides and things like that. You start to look at that, and that's where we have to get boots on the ground to make sure that we're looking not just on this flat map. You go out there now, I mean, if I had everything on a flat map like this would be easy until you walk the land. And you find out it's got, you know, 40 foot of grade variation on it. So you have to be very, very careful. And, you know, to one of the points before, I meant the planning board told me that they never walked any of the properties before they approved them. I went, oh my goodness, you have to. You have to walk them. So it takes our effort from all of us to make sure that we go out and know what we're dealing with. Because we're leaving a legacy after us. You know, 50, 100 years from now, what's it going to look like? Did I steal your thunder?
No.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. I do that. You be
And
quiet.
then think about the circles too, the employment centers, neighborhood centers, downtown centers. Should we do a new employment or a neighborhood
I
center
think
down
over
south?
by the, right where the mayor's hand is, I think that would be,
Those 2 road connections come in.
I think we need some road connections over there, and I think,
Can I draw
It's
it?
down
Yeah,
here,
you can
right?
draw right on that map.
So I'm going to kind of go
Yeah.
do this.
This is near this is what we were just talking about.
Right,
yeah,
this
yeah, I
way.
think if we
So,
can take
you
some
know,
of that
we've got
area.
that, you know, how does that work?
Yeah.
These connections, if it is, you know,
Right.
improved or not. But again, going back to joint planning efforts, not only with Union
Yeah,
County,
it's the next, and
but
the
with
state.
South Carolina and
Yeah.
Lancaster County.
Right.
You know, how do we connect here? Because we're pressured right now to start there.
Right.
But what if we weren't pressured to
Well,
start there?
where
We
does,
can
where
come
does
back again.
how far south does 5 come
Oh,
in?
it's quite a ways.
Down there.
It's miles, yeah. It's
But
quite a
still,
ways.
back to you, like, this is where we think about the Jim Wilson issue. It's gonna be
Exactly.
down there some way, right?
I've been
Right.
saying that for,
No,
that circle probably needs to move up a little bit.
Yeah, somewhere, wherever.
And what's that circle mean? Just if you
Joint
Well,
connection to
again, kind of one of
Lancaster.
these
Okay.
things, you know, how do you
Okay.
develop another
So like a
center
neighborhood center,
here,
yeah.
or whatever it is.
But I don't
another
think it necessarily needs to be
something
Or
else.
I don't think it needs to be
It doesn't have to be
residential.
residential.
Yeah.
I think if we could piggyback off of
Their
what's
employment
happening.
centers.
Depends on what they're doing on this
Depends
side of the
on-
line.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they have all, we'll call it just for the sake of conversation, if they have all residential, then it's probably not likely for us to develop an industrial center there.
Right, or
What'd you say
even,
is coming in?
or either further up.
Company in Lancaster? A new company is opening
I
up?
forget the name, but that whole area down there. Yeah, think of everything that got built, right at 521 South, you're gonna see all of that. I mean, think about where allegedly Costco or one of these other, big box stores, 521 it's gonna be
Or even
huge
like how Fort Mill's
on
been
either
able
side.
to lure some of those companies up on 160. I mean, maybe down here will become the new
Well, look at all the
160
new
as.
development in
Right,
Fort Mill by the high school
Right.
and all that down there, that's a great corridor. That was a pennies for progress
right.
discussion.
But one of the lessons learned from what's going on in 521 though is that there's been very little access management. And so
Right.
it's hurting the opportunity for growth to go further down, maybe in some
16,
positive ways.
521,
Right.
75,
And
Jefferson.
at times, and I've shared this, we talked about putting a light rail from Ballantyne to downtown Lancaster. So you think about the impacts of that, you know, it takes a lot of that traffic off the street for one, so you're
Well,
not doing
but then,
roadway
but
improvement.
again, if you keep the traffic from going in those directions and keep it local,
Keep it in a hub.
exactly.
But again, those hubs can be connected. There's always going to be north-south traffic on this 16.
Right.
And 74.
Right.
So how do you get them off of there?
So are y'all recommending that this connection be made?
Well, that's something to look at, what
Yeah.
is the feasibility of connecting? Because
Yeah.
we will need to keep the traffic out of here.
Out of there.
This is
Yeah.
a disaster in here, in the downtown area.
Yeah, and as
Yeah,
this
so
all,
if we can move that traffic either from here or somewhere farther west and pick it up, that'd be much better. We'd get out way ahead of the growth patterns. And,
Yeah, so you've got potential connection doing
right.
that.
And we need to come up where we meet the town limits on 75. So again, when you guys are looking at the Pittenger piece and all that kind of stuff, those are the things you want to start to consider, is those little connections, just as we just got, the Rogers property and then the Yarborough property and then that. That was a gift for all those to come at us at one time. That was a gift. And so now we can get these guys involved here.
think that I had something to do with it.
Absolutely. You had everything.
She's the gift.
One other thing that I think would be helpful is learning about trends in traffic too, because my very first year we went to the forum, the conference that we just went to in Wilmington, that we had in Charlotte, my first year, I sat in a class on that, on trends, and they were saying that like parking garages are going to be obsolete and people are going to be doing like instead of owning their own cars, having subscriptions
Rideshares,
with
right.
companies and doing that. And so, we're thinking about how we're driving today. Could
Could
in
that be
20
different?
years, will it be different? So I think even that would be interesting to hear about those trends.
We were talking a little earlier about rights-of-ways and, what do we do within them? So if we reserve, call it for sake of conversation, 100-foot right-of-way, what do we put in it? And what do we need? So if we can get the reservation done, maybe we only will have 2 vehicular lanes in there and maybe some grass, but on the other side, we have another mode of transport, whatever that is, bicycles, skateboards, scooters,
E-bike.
anything, e-bikes, yeah. I mean, I'm all over town with my e-bike. I can get around pretty
well, I
good.
think Tracy's point, in a way, we talked about maybe what alternative energy, but even alternative transportation, I mean, who knows what the technology will be at that point, and then maybe far-fetched, I mean, would we have
It's not.
Waxhaw transportation? Would we
Yeah.
have our own
We'd
little,
have our own
like,
transit
bus,
district.
Yeah, and I
within
didn't
the
take
town.
time to go through the details of the outline of the plan, but I just
Right.
want to point out in the transportation section, we do want to address alternative motorized options, such
Right.
as, your personal vehicles, scooters, golf carts, whatever, but also emerging transportation modes like alternative fuel issues, shared ride, mass transit. So we do want to cover that in the plan, and if there are ways that we can prepare for it now, to do so.
Well, these self-driven little pods that want to come out, I think one of the first ones that I went to up in Raleigh when I took office is they had this, probably about as big as this table, and you could sit 6-8 people in it and go anywhere in town, and it was tracked by GPS, so it didn't have anything in the ground. Problem is, it came up to a bus and couldn't go around it, couldn't figure out how to get around it, but that's going to happen here. You're right, you can have different modes of transport, and so we shouldn't always look at vehicular
right?
transport,
Right.
being what we know today. And that's actually some of the discussion that I'm having at the CRTPO level. I mean, when I went to the the convention in Raleigh, they're talking about flying delivery trucks. I thought I was going to hear about, Highway 16 improvement. No, they're off the ground already.
You'll have your Jetson 1 going to work.
Yeah, absolutely, you're going to have that one. So anyway, you're right,
Yeah.
absolutely, get out ahead, get reading stuff that's out, the contribution that we all make, the ideas, all the ideas are fine. Can we execute some of them? Maybe not. But I think the idea throwing on the table, I think that's great what we do. It's probably better than what's been ever done.
Well, the advantage of doing what we're doing now, even though we can't predict all those things, we can consider them so that we can accomplish more than one thing at a time. If we're making one kind of improvement, we have those other potentialities in mind so that we can say, okay, if we're going to build this, we should also accommodate for those future uses in some way.
And design into it, if you can, the ability to convert.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
The
easily
flexibility.
convertible. Because things will change on us every day.
Yeah, so we're just about out of time. Are there any other land use related strategies? We've been talking a lot about transportation, but anything that we want to record for the moment? This is not your last time looking at the plan, obviously, but we want to start working on those ideas that you bring to the table.
I don't know, for me, and I think we've lived through it here, it's just, the transportation has been such, I feel like we need to start with that first and then build around that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that has to be high up on the priority list.
Yeah, when you're talking about land use, you want to know where those primary corridors are and the different modes of transportation that are available.
Yeah.
And the ones that come to
If this is
us.
meant to move traffic, do we want any connections?
That's just
It's
it.
just.
You want
access
free flow
management.
as much as you
We do the
can.
connections here, but let's get them.
Take everything off of it internally. You can do whatever you want
Yeah.
once you're off the highway. But if we want to clear, just like the project we were talking about behind the Walmart Center there, we've got this opportunity to kind of, for now, bleed off some of the traffic at the intersection up there. So if we can, great. When the roadway gets improved, when 16 gets improved, all the better. We have now a free flowing. Don't allow the parking. I know we had that conversation, and I think internally about, well, trending is design and pocket parking and all that. Well, we have that in Curitan right now. It's causing a problem with all those pockets. You can't get through there. That's a major east-west corridor. And when I ask about, why that was designed that way, they said, oh, to slow down traffic. You got that one.
You got to know where to slow down traffic
Right.
or not to.
I think until trucks start flying, we still have
Right,
to
we
keep
still have to
that.
get on the ground?
Right,
Aw.
we still have to work, and even so, in the beginning of these e-vehicles, they're still gonna use the roadway, so it'll be a minute.
Yeah.
And that's gotta be at the forefront of how we're planning, and that is a point in case of how we're gonna do that.
Right?
Yeah, we have to think multimodal in that sense, sort of current
Yeah,
modes,
because that'll
future
probably be the
modes.
first thing, just
Yeah.
the basic A to B, they do it every week for whatever deliveries. That's fine, that's gonna be the first one, and then after that, us as consumers, then it'll come to us, after it's more of a tried and true technology.
Right.
But in the meantime, we still have to.
Well, I mean, we
Get
could be
there.
planning for a technology we know nothing about right now.
Right, exactly. So, any other thoughts about employment centers, or what we should be trying to attract and how we can do that with what we have available for planning?
I like to see like technology, or you was talking about medical device, I don't know, medical technology, I don't know.
And again, that's got to be a flexible thing as well, because of emerging businesses that
Yeah.
don't even exist today.
Correct.
Or
that come to
remote
us.
work.
Remote
Yeah.
work,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Different things, so flexibility. But I think if I was, again, planning, you mentioned the employment centers, you start to think about what might happen down around here.
Right.
So you've got this here, you've got this here, you've got this here, but you have nothing down here yet. And again,
Right.
goes to this discussion.
Right.
So again, start to do, like a lot of times I'll do, in a master plan community, I'll do super pads. So I don't decide what the end product is gonna be until that end user comes to me. So I give myself that flexibility, so if the market shifts or trends change, now I'm not locked into a neighborhood or whatever, I've got just raw piece of ground here. So I think we need to
Future
think about
sewer would run along that creek down there.
Right.
And talking with Jeff,
Yeah.
like that's a great border
That's
because
right. Right.
that'll gravity feed down that way.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's another reason for that being a border for
Yeah.
the area.
Think of the map folding,
Yeah,
and that's what you,
exactly.
And I
Seriously,
know what
that's
you
what we
might-
need to be thinking about.
Yeah. And we've got the wherewithal here and the brain power here to start to do this. We've probably got the best planning outfit that the town's ever seen, and we'll grow on that even better. So, this is fun for me, sorry.
Well, like we said early on, and we have to kind of close this part of the meeting in a moment, but we want to have a lot of very useful strategies, and those grouped into various goals that we're going to have. A lot of those might be, it could be a long list that's in the appendices of the plan, and maybe just the top ones in the main part of the plan. But we want to give you something to work with in the near term, and of course in the far term to whoever's working on it. But this is supposed to be a list of tools that y'all could be acting on and say, hey, it's in the comp plan, let's get working on this.
Is that accurate right there? I thought they were running along.
That's the latest I got
The
from,
Helms Road connector.
Yeah.
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 Last I
that's-
saw it was coming down almost the reverse of that,
Oh,
what I remember. Yeah, do you remember that Helms Road connector?
Oh.
I see it on both your maps now.
You're talking about on this part?
Yeah,
The-
I thought it
the
was, I
Yeah.
thought
Torrey-
it came down towards
Torrey
the track
Path is
more.
tying into Helms Road, and then it'll cross over 75.
So it's gonna go up above. That's what it looks like, it's
It
going
loops
up.
across down here, right here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
That
that's
I know.
right.
I was
And
just
then
wondering,
that's
I
the
always thought this
connector.
came down.
No, it follows
moved up.
the contours of the land. Yeah, and that's,
Details.
yeah. like you said, I mean, that's two-dimensional.
Right.
But that line actually does follow the contour.
Okay. Well, do we need to stop here? I think,
Yeah, we can have everybody
time.
eat before their
Yeah.
meeting.
So-
Closing comments?
I think it's a great session, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
I really do. I think, this kind of collaboration around the table with all the people that we have here invited, this is what the future is going to look like.
well, we certainly appreciate the input. This is what we were hoping to get, and y'all have not.
Did we meet your expectations?
Not disappointed us. But we don't want it to stop here, of course. And if this has spurred some ideas that you have, and you just start thinking and say, I got to rattle off an email to them with some more ideas, please do.
So to be fair, I know I didn't make it to at least 2 stations.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to have discussion today or whenever.
Sure.
I'm
Or
always
during dinner.
available. Right, yeah. just-
Yeah, we can do it. We can
Yeah.
do it now, but just give everybody an
Sure.
opportunity
Yeah, no
to
worries.
eat.
We can have these maps up in the hallways and we can pop out and write some stuff down.
We need more wall space.
Yeah.
Let's keep the maps up in our hallway.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to come by at any time,
Sure.
Yep.
Love that.
we'll give us
Do we have any room?
on
They
the,
always make room.
on Janet and I's hallway, if we have plenty of
We'll be in your offices next, so.
They'll be on the walls rather than on
Be in
these
the bathroom.
crazy
Yes.
easels.
Exactly.
Wendy won't mind. I'll just start taking over.
Yeah.
Oh, and put them in the
Chart.
conference room too.
Yeah.
We got some wall space in there.
Mhm,
We're
we
in
do.
there all the time.
Yeah.
With maybe some space to write down.
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah. Even just a yellow pad next to it or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other closing comments? We need a motion?
Not really. I can just call for the adjournment. So if we're done with this, we are then adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right.